we're looking at understanding commentary by looking at the editorial. And we're going to do that through the tool of SOAPStone. SOAPStone has a basic goal. It wants to break down a text into smaller pieces so we can see the organization. And because it's broken out into small parts, we're able to evaluate the text based on each of those elements. SOAPStone is an acronym for subject, occasion, audience, purpose, speaker, and tone. So let's quickly define each of those. Subject is the idea, content, and message the writer is presenting. Here you're looking for a main idea or thesis, but since we're looking at an editorial, you need to look for the assertion. This is what the author wants you to believe. You need to ask yourself, what is the writer pointing out? The occasion is the place, time, and context of the text. So you're looking for dates, place names, and mentions of events. Remember, editorials are usually written about current events, be they laws or something that's happened. And so they're going to be definitely related to something that has happened. Ask yourself, how does the place, time, context, current event affect this article? The audience is the individual or groups this message is directed to. That's my dog. I hope you enjoyed her. She's also snoring in the background. When looking for audience, check out names, places, and specific words, and ask yourself, what characteristics does the audience have in common with one another? How does the writer address them? Often, editorials are about national events, but have a local or regional opinion to them. So look for that regional spin of how the editor is writing about their local area in relation to a larger event. Purpose is the reason for an article, so you might think about author's purpose. In fact, I would suggest it: to persuade, to inform, or to entertain. You're also going to look for the writer's goal to the audience. What is the audience supposed to walk away wanting to do or believe? And ask yourself that. Because it is an editorial, there is probably going to be a persuasive spin on it. Speaker is the voice that tells the story, or in this case, as most editorials are told in the first person, probably the actual writer. You're going to look for point of view, again it's usually first, a bias, and credentials. Because editorials are written about an opinion, they're definitely going to have a bias. But you need to see if it's a valid bias. Is it one that's demeaning to the other side? Also, ask yourself, what does the person know about the topic? Are they a credible source? Are they in the field they're speaking about, thus making them an expert? And their bias, is it a supported bias or is it off the wall? Also check for support of their argument. The tone is the writer's attitude about his or her topic. So you're going to look for word choice, emotions, syntax, imagery, and evidence. Ask yourself, what does the writer feel about the subject, and how do you know? Often you can find the main idea and it will immediately set you up for what the writer feels about the topic. Let's take an example of this and have a look at an article. We're going to do a SOAPStone on the article from the New York Times. This is an editorial called Rats That Won't Stay Put. The first thing I tend to do when I am looking at an editorial is to fill in the title and author of the article. Because I can glean a lot of information from there, it actually helps me set a purpose for my reading. So let's have a look up here at this little box. Not only is it already listed as an editorial, it tells us what it's about, the city life. And if you know anything about nicknames of city, the city is also a nickname for it, the Big Apple, or New York City. The title is Rats That Won't Stay Put. Okay, this could be a number of things. Rats are, of course, an animal, but we also have that old term from old gangster movies, you dirty rat. So this could be about nasty people also. And won't stay put, that's kind of a cliche, a slang term of not staying in one place, but okay. This is written by Francis X. Kleins, and it was published on February 22nd in 2013. So it's a current event. Well, when I recorded this, this was a current event. And we have just a person's name, no credentials. Now, step 2. I'm going to read the article. Of all of the New Yorkers who have coexisted with the city's enduring population of rats, few have had the upper hand like John James Audubon, who retired in the middle of the 19th century to a patch of uptown wilderness at what is now West 156th Street. He soon was shooting rats and painting them into a lively family tableau. Rattus norvegatus, the city's ubiquitous brown Norway rat, did not need Audubon's art for immortality. The rodent remains voracious survivors wherever humans strew edible garbage, which is pretty much everywhere. New Yorkers shrug when tourists excitedly take photos of rats nonchalantly crossing subway tracks. But lately, some have noticed that floods from Hurricane Sandy have sent the rats scurrying to drier ground in higher neighborhoods. So far, this migration has not shown up on the city's 5-year rat information portal, an internet data map that lets people click on neighborhoods and individual buildings for the latest in rat tracking. The rats are, quote, smart and getting smarter, says Timothy Wong, one of the city's many entrepreneurial pest fighters enjoying a business boom. Mr. Wong, who is weary of exaggeration, says he's never seen a cat-sized rat, a common urban legend. Quote, more kitten size, he allows. 2 years ago, a double-sized albino rodent was pitchforked by a park worker. It was later identified as a Gambian pouched rat, someone's house pet that had wandered into misfortune. So no need for alarm. Any subspecies on the move that has not yet been dubbed the relo rat, the way super rat was saluted in the 1970s when it seemed to feast on pesticide. Rats seem quietly outlive their headlines, such as, quote, rodents a menace in upscale New York neighborhood, said the Huffington Post recently. Same as humans. Okay, now we could jump right into our worksheet, but let's instead take a moment to summarize what the article is about. This might help you, is step 3 to summarize, to get your ideas together before you launch into trying to fill out a worksheet. All right, what is this about? Rats are moving, and they are moving to different places, and they don't seem to be getting any larger, and people in New York are aware of them, they track them, but they don't seem particularly bothered. Okay, we might add some more detail to it, but that's the running basis. And from my summary, I can go ahead and create a pretty specific subject for my soapstone. Now, you can go in any order, whatever makes the most sense to you. But by following SOAP's tone in this order, they actually kind of build on each other, so you may find that the most easy. Step 1, subject. The general topic, content, or main idea. What is the story about? Now, I can break this down pretty specifically. Rats in New York City have moved into fancier neighborhoods. Rats live in New York. But based on our summary, that's just kind of specific. Let's say instead, rats in New York City are moving. People track them, but are not alarmed. Because of that, we need to look at the occasion. So what's the time and place of the editorial? Let's look at current events and look for some very specific information in here. Now, I can even give this a date. This was written on 2/22/2013, but there's a little bit more specific than that. I know where it takes place because we're talking about New York City, but I can give it a specific point even beyond that. I know the article says this happens after Hurricane Sandy and after the city builds a rat information portal, and is written because people are seeing rats. The audience, this is a little tricky. Because of where the editorial this is, the city life is what section this editorial is in, and we're also talking about New Yorkers, you might immediately jump there. But we've already said that people are tracking them but aren't alarmed about the rats. So this can't be about New Yorkers. My next clue comes from this statement here in the second paragraph. New Yorkers shrug when tourists excitedly take photos of the rats. Tourists notice the rats, but the New Yorkers don't. So I'm going to go that the audience is actually the group of readers that this is aimed toward are non-New Yorkers or people who like to know about New York and they're reading this section of the paper. They're the tourists. Next up, we need to look at purpose. Remember, author's purpose covers to inform, to entertain, or to persuade. The thesis statement in my paper is either going to be in the first paragraph or the last paragraph. Well, this is all an anecdote, a hook statement about one person who was making art out of dead rats, so that's not it. So I'm going to have to scroll down here to the last statement. No need for alarm. None of the rats are giant. Rats seem to quietly outlive their headlines, same as humans. That sounds like my main idea, my thesis statement. So what's the purpose? Well, it's not to entertain. I might be trying to persuade people not to be scared of rats, but there's not a lot of evidence for that. So I've got to go with to inform. And since we've talked about the movement, check out that headline, rats won't stay put. I'm going to go off a clue that that's kind of part of our purpose. To inform people that rats have been seen in different areas, but the locals don't really care. Editorials tend to be written in the first person, so the speaker often focuses on that. This is the voice that tells the story. And we're looking for what the views of the editorialist is to write this. This one's different because it's a third person, and Klein's, the writer, goes into just talking about the situation. It doesn't give any kind of credentials to their needs for writing, but they do give supported statements and seems to be kind of pro-rat. This isn't going to give us a lot about the speaker, and we're not going to do any background research, but it gives us a little bit more information. Finally, we need to look at the tone. These are word choice, image use, rhetorical devices to look for a tone. This is going to be an adjective, like how you would describe how you feel during a day. It's a very calm article. It's very educated with lots of sources, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of funny when they're talking about the giant rats that used to be seen in the 1970s, and the language, like pitchforked and tableau, lively, excitedly, scurrying. These words are kind of funny and they are kind of joking. So overall, what have we learned about this article? Rats That Won't Stay Put by Francis X. Kleins. The SOAPStone gives us a view that the rats are moving in and we don't. In review, SOAPStone shows us the organizational structure of an entire text. By focusing on individual elements, it allows us to evaluate them. Through those individual elements, we're able to form our own opinion on a topic and the whole article.